A behavior that often flies under the radar but causes significant damage in our relationships is passive-aggressive behavior. It's sneaky, subtle, and it can undermine both our personal and professional dynamics if left unchecked. In this video, I'm going to explain to you what passive-aggressive behavior is, teach you how to identify it, but most of all, teach you how not to react, but rather respond in a smart way to it. So don't go anywhere. Let's start by defining what passive-aggressive behavior really is. Experts describe it as a way of expressing negative emotions indirectly, often masking hostility or anger behind behaviors that seem cooperative but are actually intended to frustrate or to irritate the other person. According to psychologist Dr. Scott Wetzler, passive aggression is a deliberate and masked way of expressing hidden anger. So this behavior can show up in various situations. And here are some real-life examples that you might recognize. Giving the silent treatment when someone is upset, but they refuse to talk about why they are upset. I recently made 2 short videos about silent treatment that you can watch. In the one, I explain why silent treatment is emotional abuse. And in the other one, I explain how to respond instead of giving somebody the silent treatment. Another example of passive-aggressive behavior is procrastinating on purpose to make others wait. And to learn more about procrastination, you can also watch this short video that I made on this topic. Making backhanded compliments such as "you look great" for once is also a sign of passive-aggressive behavior. And avoiding direct confrontation by making sarcastic remarks is definitely passive-aggressive behavior. Another example is pretending not to hear or to understand when you are asked to do something. And also when you're agreeing to tasks or responsibilities, but you are deliberately doing them poorly, that is passive-aggressive behavior. Blaming others for personal mistakes while subtly avoiding accountability is also definitely a form of passive-aggressive behavior. There's also an interesting video I made about blame that you can watch, and the link, as with all the other links, will be in the description below this video for you to find. Another example of passive-aggressive behavior is to make others feel guilty when you say things like, "I guess I'll just do it myself so no one else will." When you're sabotaging plans or projects while you are pretending to be supportive, you're being passive-aggressive. Giving vague excuses like, "I thought you didn't want me to do it that way." That's also passive-aggressive. Withholding affection or praise when the other person seeks approval is also passive-aggressive. Now, here is an insightful video that I made about withholding sex and intimacy, if you're curious to learn more about that. Sulking and withdrawing as a way to punish without saying why is another example. Saying "I'm fine" when you're clearly upset, but you're refusing to elaborate and you're leaving the other person confused is passive-aggressive. Making indirect negative comments about someone in a group setting, hoping that they will overhear it, but without addressing them directly, is passive-aggressive. Deliberately being late to meetings or appointments to inconvenience others without explaining why is passive-aggressive. Now, punctuality or tardiness say a lot about you, and you can watch this video to find out why I say that. When offering insincere apologies like, "I'm sorry if you were offended," which shifts the blame onto the other person, is passive-aggressive. And if apologizing is hard for you to do, then you need to watch this short video about why you have to apologize and how to do it properly. Another example of passive-aggressive behavior is agreeing to plans reluctantly but subtly sabotaging them, like showing up unenthusiastic or disengaged, rolling your eyes, or sighing when someone is speaking, communicating disdain or irritation in a non-verbal way. Using jokes as a weapon, so you make hurtful remarks and then you just claim that "I was just kidding." That's passive-aggressive. And a few more examples of passive-aggressive behavior is forgetting important dates or responsibilities repeatedly, such as birthdays or deadlines, or to send a message, because this shows people that you are disregarding them and disrespecting them. And that's passive-aggressive. When you withhold important information that others need, but then you act surprised when problems arise from your withholding that information. It's passive-aggressive. Also, when you refuse to contribute ideas during a group discussion or in a meeting, but later you criticize the decisions that were made without giving any input, or giving the wrong advice or directions intentionally, knowing that it will lead to a mistake or inconvenience for another person, or downplaying someone else's accomplishments by saying, "That's good, but I thought you could do better." And finally, pretending not to hear or understand someone and thereby forcing them to repeat themselves is also passive-aggressive behavior. These behaviors might not seem outright hostile, but they're often subtle ways to express hidden resentment or frustration, creating confusion and tension. It might seem small or harmless at first, but they accumulate and they deeply harm trust, communication, and emotional well-being in a relationship. So why does passive-aggressive behavior happen? It often stems from an inability to express anger directly or a fear of confrontation. The roots of this behavior are complex, and they can be traced back to childhood experiences, learned behaviors, and emotional insecurity. Psychologist Andrea Brandt describes it as a maladaptive defense mechanism, one that allows a person to avoid conflict while still expressing their displeasure or their resentment. And according to research, people who use passive aggression often feel powerless, and rather than asserting their needs, they express their emotions in underhanded ways. And the problem is that these indirect expressions lead to confusion and resentment, and it makes it harder for issues to be resolved. Whether it's in a romantic relationship, in friendships, or in workplace environments, passive-aggressive behavior slowly erodes trust and connection. Person on the receiving end often feels confused, disrespected, and hurt. If you've experienced this behavior, you are not alone. But how can you deal with it? Here are some practical tips for those who find themselves on the receiving end of passive aggression. Stay calm and composed. Avoid reacting emotionally. Acknowledge your feelings rather than suppressing them. And set clear boundaries. State what is and isn't acceptable. I have an excellent short online course that will teach you how to set and maintain healthy personal boundaries. In this course, I explain what boundaries actually are, why we need them, and how to set and assert them with confidence. I also give you scripts to respond to those people who disrespect your boundaries. You can also encourage direct communication by asking open-ended questions. Avoid engaging in the same behavior. Don't retaliate with passive aggression. Address the issue privately in a neutral and safe environment, and use I statements. For example, I feel confused when you do this instead of that, rather than blame the other person. Don't personalize the behavior. Remember, it's about the other person's internal struggles. It's not about you. And offer them an opportunity to express themselves directly by saying something like, I sense you're upset. Would you like to talk about it? Practice empathy. Try to understand their underlying frustrations without excusing the behavior, of course, and know when to step away. If the behavior persists, take a break from the conversation. Seek professional support if it's an ongoing thing and it starts affecting your well-being. Please reach out to me or anybody else. Now, it's important to also reflect inward. Have you ever wondered if you exhibit passive-aggressive behavior? Here are some signs that you might be guilty of it too. Do you agree to do things, but you secretly resent it? Do you tend to avoid confrontation by shutting down emotionally? Have you ever given someone the silent treatment to punish them? Or do you make sarcastic remarks when you're upset instead of being direct? Any of these, if they resonate with you, it's worth exploring why. Passive-aggressive behavior can be a defense mechanism used to avoid uncomfortable emotions or confrontations, but it's not healthy and it's not a productive way to communicate. Here are some steps to unlearn passive-aggressive tendencies and to adopt healthier behaviors. Practice self-awareness, so acknowledge when you're feeling angry or frustrated. Learn assertive communication. Express your feelings directly using I statements, as I've mentioned before. Challenge your fears. Often, passive aggression stems from a fear of conflict. Fear can really wound our relationships. Here is a short video and a link to a blog post I wrote about it, and I will really recommend that you go and read this. You can sign up for free to join my Get Up and Grow online community to get access to this blog post and a wealth of other incredible resources. And if you want more, like live events and exclusive other gifts and giveaways and other resources, you're welcome to opt for the paid option of my Get Up and Grow online community. To curb passive-aggressive behavior, it's also important to understand the root cause. Explore where these tendencies come from: childhood patterns, societal conditioning, or perhaps unresolved emotions. And please seek help if it's necessary. Therapy or coaching can be very beneficial in identifying these patterns and help you to break them. Also, develop emotional regulation skills. If you learn to manage your emotions in healthy ways, you will not need to resort to passive-aggressive behavior. And finally, be patient with yourself. Unlearning passive-aggressive behavior is a process, but it is possible to change. Passive-aggressive behavior can be damaging, but it's also something we can address, both in ourselves and in others. So if you recognize it, call it out. Do so compassionately before it escalates and damages relationships. And if you've been guilty of it, don't be too hard on yourself. We all have room to grow. Take steps to understand your behavior and commit to better communication. Now, if you found this video helpful, please like and share it with someone who needs to hear this too. And hit the subscribe button to be notified when I publish the next one. Please check out my other videos. As mentioned earlier, all the links are in the description below. Let's all work together to communicate more openly, directly, and with compassion. I'm Sinta Ebersohn, and I invite you to get up and grow with me.